All right, well, we are back up to the old stomping grounds of Price, Utah in just a couple of days. Blake O'Ruling alongside my man Zack Partridge for another stacked Challenger Series card. Back-to-back Challenger Series, first time this year, and this one has a lot to look forward to. But we're going to kick things off in the welterweight division between Marco Gomez and Isaac Liebert, a couple of debuters to kick off the card, Zack.
I mean, I think we see these a lot on Challenger Series. We're gonna find out what it's about. Isaac Liebert, obviously, he's coming from a GEMA. We know what type of room he's coming from. Uh, it'll be super fun. Marco Gomez coming from kind of a unknown. His coach Chris Morris um, used to have a little bit more of a fight team. Kind of went away for a while during COVID. His gym shut down. Now he's back coaching some guys, and he had a couple of guys that were supposed to be on this card. One of which had to withdraw due to a death in the family, unfortunately. But excited to see Marco and excited to see his coach Chris Morris back at shows again. And I think it's entertaining. Talks about the growth of MMA. Chris is somebody that he respected Agima a lot. Is cross trained there a little bit in the past, and it's just I think it's fun when you're starting to see the evolution of guys that used to train together. Now their guys are fighting together. It's kind of fun.
All right, we move over to another kind of late replacement, late change to a catch weight at 140 pounds. Callan Curtis facing opposite Dalton Moon. Dalton Moon, another name out of Agima who's been very popular amongst the masses.
Yeah, this one was really interesting. Callan Curtis was originally supposed to fight Ty Monson. Ty unfortunately broke his hand in camp. Teammate of Nate Reinhardt and Jackson DeGray. Broke his hand, unfortunately, at work. And then, forgive me, Alma, I still can't say your last name.
Filet Ali'i.
There you go. He just had life get in the way. And I mean, he was a prime example of, some things are more important than amateur fighting, and it's okay. I appreciated him so much with his just effective communication and just letting me know and being honest and upfront when his circumstance with his job and as a single dad, life changed, and some things are more important to me taking care of at home than an amateur fight. And he just wanted to give us as big of a heads up as possible so that we could find a replacement for Dalton. It kind of happened the same within 24 hours that both those things happened. So kind of worked out. We just met right in the middle at a catch weight at 140, and both guys get to stay on the card. No short notice replacements in camp, and I'm excited. I think Callan's a pretty decent grappler, and Dalton's just a scrappy, tough guy is what I hear. So, when you get tough, scrappy grappler and tough, scrappy guy, I think we'll have a pretty entertaining fight.
Yeah, when we're talking about Callan Curtis, he's one of three of those price locals on this card. But I
Yeah.
also want to mention he watched Mason Sorensen last year at Fierce Challenger Series 6, and that's what inspired him to take this fight. So 1 year removed, we see him make his debut, which is going to be really, really cool. All right. Parker Abelin is going to be the last debuter to make the walk versus Vincent Vanisi at 205 pounds, Zack.
Yeah, and Parker was supposed to fight Marco Gomez's teammate, who unfortunately had a family member pass away, and he's from Haiti, so he had to go back home to Haiti wish him well. And then Vincent, one of my teammates at One Hit, he's been begging for a fight anywhere for a while now, and so I said, "Hey man, like might be an opportunity here." Parker and his team, they were comfortable with the matchup. One and two. I'm very interested. I think Parker's a bigger guy. Vincent was aiming to go down to 185, was well on his way to be able to fight at 185 on a full camp. Short notice, we'll do 205. So no weight cut needed for Vince. Parker, I think, is going to have the size. Vince will have the experience. Vince is a really fun. He's a fun fighter. Fights like a true poly, man. He wants to stand and bang, and it'll be a good time. So I'm really excited for that fight. Sorry, I keep looking over there at my board, but I think that fight will be a lot of fun to kick off with some big boys.
No, you talked about Vincent Vanisi kind of chomping at the bit to get a fight. This is his first walk in about 2 years, so very excited to see him make his return. All right, Randy Kopczynski versus Alan Aragon at 170 pounds. This is the largest age discrepancy in Fierce FC history. 24-year age gap between these two. 45
Really?
years of age for Randy. As for Alan Aragon, he is 21 years of age.
Well, and Randy is somebody, he hasn't made that walk for what, 13 years?
It was 2012, I believe. So
2012.
12.
So 12 years. 12 years he hasn't fought, and works down there in Price as a local in the solar fields. Wanted to get on the card, and been seeing him training up at the pit in Salt Lake City too, cross training a little bit. Uh, Fun striker. It's all I've heard and known about. I don't know much about him. He's 45 and fun striker. And Allen is a good wrestler. Interesting tidbit though. In Randy's corner will be Steve Ergel. Steve Ergel was in the corner of Tanner Settler, who has since passed. Tanner is the person that beat Allen in his first fight. So Steve kind of feels like they have the recipe to beat Allen. No, it's all fun and good competition, but they feel comfortable with it. So it's going to be really interesting if Randy's going to be able to keep this fight on the feet where he wants it, or if Allen's going to be able to get it to the ground where he is smothering.
Yeah, Randy, a former Golden Gloves boxer. As for Alan Aragon, 4 for 6 on takedowns last time out, 80% control time throughout the entirety of that fight in October. That is going to be a blast. Michael Lazalde and Nate Ayers. This one was a late replacement as well, and this one is so much fun. I think a lot of people are really looking forward to seeing the return of Michael Lazalde after that unsuccessful walk in May. As for Nate Ayers, his first time back in an MMA rule set in about 2 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of interesting, right? Because so Lazalde, like, I think he's doing some right things, and he said, "Hey, if you have anything in 145, let me know, and I'll be ready." In his last fight at 155, super short notice, and this it's a little bit more of a I don't want to say fair matchup, but it's more of an even matchup, right? He's exciting. The way Nate fought his last kickboxing match reminded me a little bit of how Michael, he kind of throws caution to the wind a little bit, and just lets his hands go in that kickboxing match. Kind of wild. I think, and that's a lot of the same energy that Lazalde brings. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting. Both at their natural weight classes of 145. Nate's been wanting to fight. We had an option for him potentially for August. That opponent chose a different option. We were looking at maybe September, and then he's getting married right around then. But he really wanted to fight. So it was like it kind of just made sense, and I felt like we kind of owed Lazalde a featherweight fight, for taking that fight against Malachi on short notice. So we got him on the card, and that's a really fun fight to kick off the main card.
All right. Well, speaking of fun fights, how about Jason Ergel and Bane Varner? When we talk about Jason Ergel, he is the last price fighter. He's going to be the last local on the card. However, he does also kind of represent Empire MMA. I don't know who he's exactly representing coming into this. Do you know?
I think Fierce and Empire,
Okay.
I mean, I think Empire's always going to kind of be his home, but he's at Fierce now and down there in Price, and he's another one. He cross trains down at Extreme Couture as well as going up to the pit in Salt Lake City as well. So he's getting around, trying to get a lot of work in and getting a lot of bodies to work with. Him and Bane is pretty interesting. We've seen Bane look like the world beater, and then obviously he ran into a buzzsaw with Gio back in April. Man, he texted me the very next week and he said, "Get me back in there, like Zack, get me back in there." So usually I really like when there's so many fighters that when they kind of they have performances that maybe they're disappointed in or whatever. A lot of them, I shouldn't say a lot, but it happens where they kind of get into their shell and just go away. And that was not the case for Bane. He wanted to get right back in there, and I think him and Jason make a whole lot of sense record wise, skill wise, and kind of strengths and weaknesses wise. Bane's a lot more of a power puncher wrestler and wants to get in the pocket. And Jason, he's tall, he's long, purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Likes to fight a long striking game, and he likes to play the jiu-jitsu game on the ground. So very, very interesting contrast and styles. Should make for a fun fight.
Yeah, Bane back up at 185 pounds. He's unbeaten when he's above 170 pounds on
no kidding.
Yeah, so that'll be very interesting as we kick things off at middleweight. All right, John Henderson and Tyler Call. This is one of the more exciting ones that have been kind of flying under the radar. John Henderson, 3-1 out of Nevada. As for Tyler Call, we all know him, 4-3 out of Agema, the longtime amateur for them.
I mean, I think this is a really good fight. It's a big fight. They're both coming off of title fight losses. This fight was scheduled to be on the May Maverick Center card. Tyler Call had an injury, got pushed back to this card. The person that wins this fight, more than likely is putting themselves right back into the 185 title fight discussion because Alex Johnson has vacated that title. So we got a vacant middleweight amateur title that we need some people to put themselves in the mix. And I think we're going to see a very exciting fight. It's interesting watching John's past fights and watching his brother fight and how tough they are. Very Man, they're in there to cause damage and put somebody's lights out. And Tyler is very much a very calculated, skilled striker. I would say more. He kind of, he picks his shots and he moves and uses beautiful footwork to find his shots. Where John just kind of tries to create chaos and catch you in that chaos. And so another very interesting contrast of styles on the feet. And very interested to see where, what happens if and when it goes to the ground as well.
Yeah, speaking of that contrast, John Henderson, 100% finish rate. As for Tyler, like you mentioned, a little bit more calculated in his output. Very excited for that one at 185 pounds for potentially a number one contender fight.
It is a number one contender fight. It is. We have a nice little mix, but there's a lot of interesting dynamics at 185. But Jason Ergel's right there in that mix. Bane Varner, the winner of Bane Varner, Jason Ergel. If Bane decides to stay at 185, and John happens to get his hand raised, if John Henson comes out with the win, you could see a Bane versus John. You could see a Jason versus John. You could see Tyler Call versus Jason Ergel. I mean, obviously Bane and Tyler are teammates, so they want to fight each other, but maybe then Bane goes back down to 170 after a win. And so, I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff. Oh, by the way, Michael Pfeiffer with one of the more impressive wins at middleweight that we've seen. 3-1 now on a 3-fight winning streak. His only loss coming to Jason Ergel on a week's notice in a debut down in Crown. So, I mean, it's like we have a lot of guys right there that are knocking on the door wanting to fight for that empty spot. So a lot of clarity will be made after July 13th. On July 14th, I'm sure we're going to have some conversations of who, where, and when.
Man, so much to look forward to in that one. And that just precedes what is, I would say, the biggest amateur fight in the history of the state. Nasir Davis and Jackson DeGray just got put together a couple of days ago, and history is on the line between the two top pound-for-pound fighters in the amateur rankings. Obviously, Nasir Davis looking to become the first ever double champion. As for Jackson DeGray, looking to tie Mark Chavez for the most amateur title defenses of all time. Zach, so much flies off the film for this one. I'll just give you the floor and talk a little bit about this matchup because it is unreal.
Well, it's the fight that we tried to make originally, ironically, and we were trying to see if they wanted to meet at 130 for some sort of, pound for pound number one super fight. Nasir I think he's young, he's growing into his body, and I just don't think 125 is in his future. Both times he's fought for us for the belt, he's needed the entire 2 hours and came prepared last time to cut his hair to make 125 if needed, but he made championship weight with his hair last time. He's a big kid. He's a big flyweight, and I think going up to 135 is a good idea. So he was making the move to 135 right as Jackson feels like 125 is going to be his home as a pro, and so they just a timing thing. We just thought we missed him. We missed the fight that we all wanted, and then it was just the way it played out was just so I think I told you it's almost too perfect. Like the way it all played out, Christian Cortez, shout out to him for handling it the right way. He communicated with me. He let me know what was going on. And then he just said, when do you want me to let you know by if I'm good or not? Cause I don't want to make it so Jackson doesn't get a fight by waiting too long to pull out to see if I can get over this respiratory virus. So, I appreciated him communicating. When fighters pull out over sickness, injury, whatever, communication's a big part of that process, and appreciate him and his professionalism and how Christian handled that. Made the phone call to Jackson's team, and that's when we started finding out, Nate wasn't 100%, and Nate being the savage that he is, he didn't want to pull out. Nate didn't want to pull out. He was trying to make it through, and I thought that was a prime example of the fighter being game, which is his job, but the coach looking out for his guy and doing the right thing by his guy. And so I think the right decision was made that if he wasn't healthy, and then we just got the fight we all made. It just made too much sense. It was almost too easy. But I'm so grateful that it happened because it's. I had somebody tell me they said they have a teammate on the card, but they said even if we didn't have a teammate on the card, I'd drive from Salt Lake down to Price just for that fight.
I think that's kind of the sentiment for just about everyone. I personally got multiple messages from people who I didn't know were big Fierce fans going, why aren't these two fighting? And then once we actually got that fight done, it was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this fight is happening, which just goes to show hopefully that the masses are as excited for this as we are, because truly, I think that both of these guys have as high of ceilings of anyone in the amateur rankings, and absolutely cannot wait to see who comes out victorious in that one. And we're also going to have a little bit of a different belt. I know the design's going to be slightly different. I know we kind of talked about that. Do you want to unveil that at all?
Yeah, I mean the belt is going to not only say the Fierce Bantamweight champion, but the belt also does say on it pound for pound number one. So I mean this is a unique one-time custom belt that is being made specifically for this fight. All the belts do have their weight classes on it, so this one does distinct pound for pound number one, and so will their Rockwell watch. So pretty cool. We had a lot of things that had to come together and change up some things, but I think all for the better. I think we'll see Christian, before the end of the year again, maybe a couple times. We're going back up to Idaho Falls in November. We could see them both, and then Nate will get healthy and put himself right back in the bantamweight title mix before the end of the year.
Final fighters to walk through are going to be two professionals, Ben Robinson, the 15-year pro. As for Starling Simmons on the other side, the 5-1 professional who is finally back and getting the wheels going once again. Back in August of 2021, we saw him snap his leg. He already has a win since that comeback a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I mean, Ben wanted somebody that would stand and bang with him, and I said, "Here's Starling," But man, I was the color commentator on the broadcast when Starling broke his leg against Billy Elicana. I'll never. There's just moments in sports where where you, and I'll never forget hearing the leg crack and the echo in the Maverick Center. Really interesting, but it was awesome to see. Starling almost made a comeback for us. His leg maybe wasn't totally ready yet. He got a comeback fight in is that the Dominican Republic where his fight was?
Yes, it was in the Dominican Republic in February.
Yeah, and he got a win, so good for him. He's 5-1. Dude, Starling's kind of a monster, and Ben just wants somebody to give him a chance. He was taken down, and Cardi executed a really good game plan the last time that he fought, but like Ben's in there to throw down and scrap. So anytime somebody wants to throw down and scrap, fireworks are going to happen. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun. We've seen Ben have some success in the Fierce cage, and so sometimes he just needs the right dance partner to give him that shot. So I'm excited for this main event. I think it's going to be very exciting, and I would not be surprised if it ended very quickly.
Yeah, Ben Robinson, his first main event in 11 years. As for Starling Simmons, his first ever as a professional. So that is going to be really fun atop the marquee. Saturday, Price, Utah, Carbon County Event Center, an absolute cannot miss event with some of the biggest fights this promotion has ever put on. Zach, I just want to give you the floor really quickly if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, and we'll be making another post about it too, but just so people know and are aware, hometown pro middleweight champ Mike Jones from Price will be in attendance. He will be there taking pictures with his belt, signing posters, doing all sorts of fun things. So, if you're from Price, good way to come see and take your picture with Mike before his main event at the Maverick Center August 3rd. Tickets are on sale for that. And we're going to have just a ton of fun down there in Price. That show's always fun. The energy is great down there. It's worth the trip. Everybody go check out David Kim, his Instagram. He gave you a itinerary to hit the weekend down in Price and the fun things to do down there. So shout out to David Kim, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
He shot me a text and said, I just gave you guys the best free promo ever. I said, thank you so much. Really
He
appreciate it.
killed it. Killed it.
Doors open at 4. Fights start at 5. Absolute can't miss card. Zack Partridge, thank you so much.
Thank you.